awareness of where your money is going is absolutely key. So absolutely frame this.
You say that again?
What? Awareness?
Look at it.
We got a riff on that.
Look at the darn statement. Like, look at the debt. Look at it's there. Look at it. It's not going to change without ignoring it. You got to look at it. It's a great point.
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole, the podcast proving you don't need a degree in finance, just some grit, a game plan, and maybe a sense of humor. Your hosts are retired Army veteran Rob Moore and retired Marine veteran Omen Quelvog. Together, they'll help you dodge financial landmines, call in the air support on your savings, and laugh at the ridiculous money mistakes we've all made. If you can survive mandatory fund days, you can survive personal finance. Welcome to the Foxhole.
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole. I am your host, Omen Quelvog, and for our first episode, and hopefully for a few more after this, I've got my battle buddy with me, my co-host, Rob Moore. Hey, Rob.
Good afternoon. Hi, Omen.
Just before this episode started, we were talking about the multiple times that you've actually retired from the Army. So it's not just you have your retirement date, but how many times is this? Is it like 3 or 4?
Yeah, I should clarify. Omen's talking about the multiple dates that are part of retiring. I have not retired from the Army multiple times. But as you know, if you've been through the retirement system in any military branch, you know it's not a day. You go to work and you're done to your last day and everyone has cake and you leave. It's like 5 different days. The day you stop working and the day you have a ceremony and the day you go on terminal leave, and then there's some clearing, etc. So I'm right in the middle of the first 2 or 3. You've got a ceremony coming up next month, and that'll make things feel sort of official, but won't be out all the way out, drawing pension and everything till 2026. By the way, I think we're going to need to have some sort of, at the end of this, a podcast, an episode about anything financially related to trying to get out.
Oh, that's probably more than one episode.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
Well, today's topic, we've got a question that nobody has ever answered. It's the impossible question. So clearly this is going to be our first episode, and this is why we cover this one. And that's what to do if somehow, some way you get a pile of cash, an unexpected amount of money. What do you do with it? Do you use it to pay down debt, or do you use it to pile up cash?
Right.
So that's where we're going to go for this episode. But before we get there, we are going to hop into this week's headline. Today's headline comes from Yahoo News. The stock market finally has what it wants, and now is asking, now what? At long last, the rate cut relief has arrived, and while Wall Street has priced in the Fed's shift towards easing, the actual decision brought a jolt of bullish energy. So what this article is getting at the moment is this past week, we had the Fed chair and the rest of the Fed released their point drop. I think it was expected that they were going to drop interest rates, the federal fund rate, by 0.25%, and they came through with it. But I think what this article is actually getting at is there's a little bit of confusion about the rate cut itself and what's in the future for the rate. Mainly because when they dropped the rates, both inflation and unemployment were on the rise, which seemed a little bit weird when you think about the levers of the Fed and why they would either reduce a rate or increase a rate. It's mainly it's to control the economy. If inflation is on the rise, they're going to increase the rate, which will reduce borrowing. It makes borrowing a lot harder, which people spend less money, and then businesses start to freeze their hires or let people go. Inflation falls, and they will reduce the rate. People spend more, businesses hire. So, Rob, kind of over to you. What do you see about this particular article, and just what does it mean to you in terms of the Fed reducing the rate while we watch unemployment and inflation maybe increase at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good rundown. I think it's critical to just also put out there, we're recording this, third week of September. This just happened a couple of days ago. So historically, when you're listening, that's what we're talking about. So it did cut 0.25%. We knew this was coming. I think it was universally expected. by all. The current administration was kind of pushing for that. A lot of administrations like lower interest rates. But I think this is a fair criticism that it's a little odd that, interest rates don't tend to drop during periods of increasing inflation and unemployment. But I think it's important to also look at a historical context because we're kind of still in historical norms for both. Inflation's a little higher than historical norms, but and as far as it increasing over the last 4 or 5 months, it's kind of been ticking up by 0.1% or so. I think maybe this is a reaction to we've had 4 years of high interest rates or higher than the last 20 years. And perhaps maybe this is just, we're trying to give people a break. Like, hey, we've done the hard work to try to curb inflation. So perhaps this is just a boost to the economy. But you talked about levers. I think the only thing more complicated than, the stock market is perhaps the Fed's reasoning. So it's hard to know exactly what's going on. But as far as we've talked about this now for like 2 or 3 minutes, but really, what does it relate to you and me?
Yeah, ultimately, and I think the banks, those that hold the high yield savings accounts, they were ready to go, expecting a rate cut to happen. I don't know if you noticed. I certainly did. Like the day after the rate cuts came out, my high yield savings account interest rate dropped by, I think it was 0.3 or something like that.
The email
it was immediate.
I got it that afternoon.
Yeah. What was that afternoon?
Yeah,
Great. Yeah, they were quick. They were definitely at the ready. So you probably saw that. Some other things that you might see, though, and it's not always having to do with your savings rate, but also your credit card rates. Your credit card rates, your interest rates actually might reduce a little bit as well. Depending on how high your credit card interest rates are, that might not be all that significant to you, but at the end of the day, maybe it will help you out just a little bit.
It'll go from 23.25 to 23 flat. Great.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. But I think also day-to-day living, what do you think about day-to-day living, what the federal funds rate does for people?
Not much. Really, unless you're shopping for a loan right now for a car or a home, the higher amount you're looking to borrow right now, perhaps you have a HELOC that's tied to a variable interest rate, or if you're searching, like I said, for a home, you're going to purchase a home that's worth maybe $500,000. 25 bips is going to move the needle a lot for your mortgage payment. We're talking hundreds of dollars potentially, depending on the size of the loan you're seeking to get. So for you, loan shoppers out there right now, please be aware. And if you've already got something in the works, like an approval or whatever, hit that bank up again. Say, hey, does this interest rate change anything for my condition? And if not, then maybe shop around a little bit.
Yeah, I was actually speaking with a client just yesterday. So this is 2 days after the Fed rate releases, and they are in the process of refinancing their mortgage for over a point. So they got their mortgage when mortgage rates were at probably a peak high, and based on what banks were foreseen as a rate reduction here, they were already able to get kind of ahead of things and start on a refi for their mortgage, and they are getting over a point decrease in their mortgage. It's amazing.
Yeah, and before we kind of go off we're going to be tempted to go in different tangents all the time, but if you're one of those people that got it in the last 4 years, it's not all about the interest rate. Just know, all the fees associated, and there's, break-even dates. So, reach out to a pro, do your research before deciding on that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of debts, let's get into our topic for today.
Great.
So, Rob, you get some extra money. Maybe you filed a travel claim and you spent less on that TAD trip than you thought you would, which is unlikely, but I mean, maybe you did. I don't know.
We've traveled together. You've seen how I spent.
I know. Living the life of luxury.
Yeah, I'll have the dessert. Yeah.
Another bowl? Come on, Rob. And then, or maybe you got your tax return, you withheld too much taxes, and now all of a sudden you got this huge tax return, gift from mom and dad, maybe a small inheritance. Rob, what do you do with this extra money? Do you pay off your consumer debt or do you pile up cash?
Yeah, play the lottery. Just really go all in on the lottery. No, given the recent change in that we actually might end up going to Home Goods or HomeSense and buying more fall decorations, which for the record, if my wife's listening, I'm not complaining. But in all seriousness, the first, it depends, right? But for me, I don't have any high interest debt currently. I do have some debt, but it's all, what we quote unquote good debt. So I would probably throw it into savings.
Yeah, I'm allergic to debt. I would probably throw it against the debt. And I think that that could be a good or bad feeling, because I also realize that there are low interest loans that could be considered like good debt. But I'm allergic to it. So I'd have to, throw it all to debt. But weirdly, I think my wife would also go to Home Goods and outfit the house with all of the fall. And she probably will listen to this as well. And so I'll be in for it.
All right. So assuming these fall purchases don't put you into more debt, so you've got, okay, so let's say you do have debt. Okay. Let's talk about the muscle, this aversion you have to debt.
Yeah. I think I grew up honestly with the Dave Ramsey kind of thing. And although I do understand the principles of Dave Ramsey, I'm not a pay off everything, all of it right now kind of guy. Like I have come around to it. But the thing that he gets to, and the thing that I want to point out here, is high interest debt hurts. We love high interest when we save, like high yield savings accounts at 4%, 4.5%, but we do not like high interest when we owe.
Amen.
And so you mentioned, that 23.75, 29%. There's a episode of Michael Kitces speaking with Forrest Baumover, who is a retired Navy lieutenant commander, where he tells a story of a kid who misses the ship's movement because he had to get a second job to pay off a car loan with an interest rate that was well over 36%. And by having the second job, he was just extremely tired. He overslept. The ship took off without him. And that's a big deal in the Navy. If you miss your ship's movement, that's a huge deal. So I have no idea what happened to the kid, but high interest rates will hurt you in terms of your ability to just get ahead. The interest rate is just going to chase after you until you can, beat that thing down and pay it off. So point number one, high interest rate, that hurts.
Yeah. Can I make a
point number two?
Can I make a point before you move on? Yeah. So the high interest rate in that story, especially about, military service people that get encumbered with this high interest debt, that's a thing. And I just want to warn our listeners, if you haven't been through this yet, I'm sure you have. You've been to basic training or have a shop for a car when you first got in the service. You know how this goes. The dealer or whoever's going to sell you whatever that this loan is tied to, they're not going to sell you on an interest rate. They're going to sell you on a payment, right? And in fact, I've been to dealerships where I'm talking to them and I plan on financing the loan, and they just keep steering towards payment. I'm like, look, man, I want to know the interest rate and the total and the cost that we're financing. And it was a really uncomfortable situation for them, which I'm okay with. But word to the wise, when you're buying something that requires financing, a salesperson's always going to steer towards payment. Be mindful of that interest rate. It's a good point.
Yeah, 100%. And for, this doesn't just apply to people like new people coming into the military. This applies to the leaders of the military as well. Be mindful of the fact that your new troop is coming in and maybe just doesn't know to... Yeah. One tactic I've used in the past is to actually walk in with my own loan somewhere else that I've already got pre-approved. I know the interest rate. I know the deal that I'm getting. And so I don't have to worry about a car salesman touting a payment to me. I already know what I'm getting.
That's smart.
So
yeah, but to your
just
point,
one tactic there.
To your point about military leaders, yeah, when you see your junior Marine, soldier, sailor, etc., driving on with a brand new Charger, it might be worth asking them what's up. Like, hey, about that car you're driving, like, how'd you get that? Yeah,
brother, like quite literally yesterday in one of the military Facebook groups, there is an E3 who said he had a $738 payment on a 2024 Honda CRV. And he said he was already drowning. Like he just got this thing and he's already drowning. So yeah, you just got to watch these things and watch out for your people.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to point two here. So it's a guaranteed return when you pay off your high interest debt. So when you think about we'll just take like a conservative return on your investments when you invest into the stock market of like 6 or 7%. If you've got a 20+% interest rate on a credit card, you're chipping away pretty seriously at the overall return in your portfolio. If your portfolio is increasing by 6%, but your debt is increasing by 20+%, like that's way out of balance. And so, overall, you are still having an effect on your overall portfolio value when you get rid of your high interest debt. What do you think there?
Yeah. To your point, the levers thing you talked about earlier. Yeah. Both sides of the seesaw, right? When it comes to tackling or increasing your net worth. Good point.
Yeah. And then point 3, and I kind of mentioned this already about myself. Some people are just straight up allergic to debt, right? Like they've grown up, maybe they grew up with kind of in a poor household, or who knows why they dislike debt so much. But that is a point. If it bothers you to the point that you are stressed and anxious and I don't want to owe anybody anything, then yes, put this money 100% towards debt and get that thing paid off. It might not be very healthy for you. I might recommend going to see a counselor as well. And not just a financial counselor, like maybe just work through some things in your life, maybe some financial baggage that came along with those attitudes. But yeah, absolutely put that money to debt if this is something that is going to keep you up at night.
Yeah. Can I add to that a little bit?
No.
Perfect. Moving on. So you talk about allergic to debt, and I think that's really valuable because you've made a conscious decision. Like, I don't like debt. I don't want debt. And so we're going to pay it off. And to maybe draw this point a little further down the road, if you're somebody who you've paid off debt and you immediately start to see credit card balances increasing again, then we might have some sort of behavioral problem, spending addiction, whatever you want to call it. Like you said, there are counselors that are specifically skilled at handling this type of thing. But if that's you, either you're allergic or you feel like you have some behavioral draw towards increasing debt, you're going to live in this first step, paying down debt, really focused on that, not worrying about savings. But as soon as you see debt, it's like mission number 1, we're killing this debt.
Yeah. That's a great lead in to some of the keys to actually paying down debt. The key number 1 is to stop going into debt, right? Plug the hole.
Brilliant.
Oh man, these concepts. So
step 1, don't go into debt in the first place.
Check your cash
flow. Okay. Sorry. I figured it. Yeah.
Check your cash flow. No, it's all good. Yeah. Cash flow. So we mentioned the word budget, and people would probably turn off the podcast right now. It's a bad word to some people. I actually like using a cash flow method called the 50-30-20. And 50-30-20 just indicates it's a balance, right? 50% of your income, no more than, goes towards your mandatory living expenses, your steady payments, rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance premiums, etc. And then no more than 30% of your income goes towards your discretionary income. So eating out, gym memberships, subscriptions, Amazon subscription and Amazon, all those things. And then around 20% of your income then goes towards like savings goals, whether it be your retirement or a taxable account or an emergency fund or whatever it is, right? And I love this framework because it creates balance. It gives permission for spenders to spend and savers to save. And so if you wrap your cash flow around this framework, it also allows you then to direct money towards your debt. So just first, I think we talked about this, in some other time, but awareness of where your money is going is absolutely key. So absolutely frame this.
Can you say that again?
What? Awareness?
Look at it.
We got to riff on that.
Look at the darn statement. Look at the debt. It's there. Look at it. It's not going to change without ignoring it. You got to look at it. That's a great point. By the way,
then,
you said you didn't want to talk about budget. 50, 30, 20 smells a lot like a budget to me. I can smell it through the numbers.
Nope. Nope.
No? Okay.
It is not a budget.
Well, as I do have a question for you, because I know we've got a lot of, you specialize in faith-based planning, and we do have clients that are charitably inclined or they tithe. With that 50, 30, 20, real quick, where does that come from? The tithing or the charitable goal?
Yeah. So for those clients, I actually kind of split this out and take 10% off the discretionary spending and call this the 50, 20, 20, 10 rule of thumb. And I would like to emphasize that this is a rule of thumb, not a rule of law. I try to tell that to everybody. I might actually come up with something a little bit different, because the moment that people see numbers, they're like, I'm going to get those numbers. Like, it's not exactly the point. But the thing of it is, when these numbers get out of whack, so if you have 60 or 70% mandatory expenses, you start to take away from your discretionary or your savings or your giving, if that's the case. And suddenly you feel paycheck to paycheck. Or if your spending, your discretionary spending and your mandatory spending is all high, but your savings is low, then the saver in your life is probably screaming right now. And same thing if your discretionary is low, but your saving is high, you're sucking the soul. And I know this for a fact because I sucked the soul out of my wife as a saver. You know, you're like, I don't get to spend anything. Like we have to have balance in our lives.
You've heard the phrase, this is not a zero-sum game. This is a zero-sum game, month to month. Like, it's all we got. Like, but I wanted to, or we feel like we want to spend stuff, or it's like, well, it ain't there.
Yeah. So, and then kind of the last key here, and to your point, is the behavior. If it's really a behavioral issue that got you into debt, then look at what that behavior is that got you into debt. So credit cards are one of the key problems, potentially. And it's not the credit card itself, it's the use of. Can you trust yourself to use a credit card and use it within the limits that you set for yourself each day or each month, and then pay it off every month? Or are you starting to carry a balance month to month and you start to see that thing increase? It's the definition of insanity. Like you cannot expect a different result by doing the same thing over and over again. So if the credit card and your ability to use the credit card is the problem, I'm not saying get rid of the credit card. I'm just saying lock it away, put it in the freezer, whatever.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. You know, what you're talking about is a symptom of a cash flow problem. Ultimately, I think this is what we're getting to. And it's interesting because that's one of the first things I ask my prospects or the clients as they onboard. In order to sniff out if there's a cash flow problem, I'll ask a very simple question. I say, do you notice your credit card debts increasing and or your savings account decreasing? It's just much easier to say like, hey, do you budget? Do you stay on budget? Like, I don't know. But those are symptoms of a problem, and they're very easy to sniff out and say, okay, you know, I'm spending more than I make. We have a cash flow problem we got to tackle. Hey gang, it's Rob here. I wanted to take a moment and tell you a little more about my buddy Omen and his financial planning firm, Formander Wealth Management. As you already know, Omen is a proud Marine Corps retiree turned financial advisor. That's right, his firm is a faith-based financial advice firm focused on the values and life goals of active duty military veterans and retirees, federal and state government employees, and of course, all their families. Formander Wealth Management is a fiduciary, fee-only, flat-fee firm. That means there's no commissions, no referral fees, and no percentage of asset management charges. Just one clear price for advice that is always in your best interest. Whether you're preparing for retirement, navigating a major life change, or simply seeking clarity in your financial decisions, Formander stands ready to serve. Learn more at www.formander.com. That's www.4myndr.com.
Formander Wealth Management LLC is a registered investment advisor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell securities. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Please consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.
You've done a really good job here of outlining all the reasons why we're going to put that extra money towards debt. All very valid. But on the flip side of this seesaw, there's putting the money towards savings, which I would be more inclined to do. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why we should consider doing that as well. We've got a few points here. The first one is the emergency fund, right? So what we call the justification for a basic amount in savings at all times. No matter what your net worth is, no matter what your money is, having a set amount of money in a liquid savings account. I stress liquid, right? It's not your IRA. It's not your TSP. It's not your 401k, et cetera. The money that's kind of locked away, sort of. I'm talking about savings accounts, CDs, the money market, et cetera, or even your checking account if you really need some real simplicity in your life. So the standard conception of an emergency fund, you hear 3 to 6 months, right? That's what you hear all the time, like 3 to 6 months. And then that's it. There, you hear like, okay, you have 3 to 6 months in your emergency fund. It's like, well, 3 to 6 months of what? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And going back to your talking about the 50, 30, 20, the 3 to 6 months is talking about the 50, right? Because the discretionary spending, the 30 that you talked about, it's discretionary. You can do away with it if you need to, right? We're talking about the 50. What does it take to keep the lights on? What does it take to keep me from losing my house? What does it take to keep my car from getting repoed, et cetera? Whatever those mandatory expenses are, that if you suffer a loss in employment, loss of income for any reason, you could float those to 3 to 6 months. And that varies a little bit. I don't want to get too much into it, but for those of us in the military, we're not too worried about losing our job, pending any terrible mistakes that we make, right? But if you're being a good service member and you're in good status, you're not worried about losing your job. It doesn't mean you don't need an emergency fund, because there's 1% deductibles on hail and wind that might hit you. There's I need 4 new tires on my car. I wasn't tracking that they were going bald. I got to pay that. The emergency fund is there to keep you from slipping into the credit card debt that we talked about so much. Because if you don't have that emergency fund, then the option is typically high interest consumer debt. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I agree with you that in the military, we consider that income stream to be pretty solid, right? I mean, if you're married and you might have a spouse that works outside the home for an income, that income might not be nearly as stable, particularly as your spouse moves around. As you all get up and move around PCS from duty station to duty station, maybe your spouse finds it pretty difficult to find a job from place to place. But I would say that there are times in even a military career to consider maybe even a little bit more than 3 months. The things that I specifically think about are retirement is probably one time where you probably want to kick up your emergency fund, mainly because there's a number of things that happen at retirement that are out of your control. For me, and I hope this works out for you as well, Rob, but for me, I got my pension immediately. Like I got it the very next month, which is great. I know that does not happen every single time. I know for a fact that there is somebody in our community of financial planners who was waiting for 3 months to get their pension. So between that, if you qualify for disability and getting any kind of additional disability payments, maybe you want to take a break from a job. I know a lot of people, they just walk out of the military one day into the job the next day, but maybe you don't want to do that. Having an emergency fund, having something plussed up will certainly help with that. I would point out 2019, January of 2019, the Coast Guard did not get paid for 3 weeks. Yeah. They missed 2 paychecks. And the impact that had on a significant number of coasties was just unbelievable. So it can happen. It's pretty odd that it does, but it can happen.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and also back up to your point about the retirees, we're looking at now all of a sudden we've got a copay for medical coming up that we have to plan for. We're going to do retire select for TRICARE, and that's got a catastrophic out of pocket. We got to be ready for if something, God forbid, something happens. My medical is not free anymore or included in my benefits, right? But I might have to. We might have to face that in addition to any other type of emergency. So yeah, the reasons are varied and valid for military, whether you're active, retired, or whatever. This emergency fund should be in place, because to point number two, it just feels like a warm blanket. It feels good. I mean, at the very simplest, like sometimes you open up your bank statement, it's like, oh, it feels good to look at that number, but really it feels good to know you're covered. Like, God forbid something happens, for one of these things, it just feels better. It's a psychological buffer to know something hits, you're not going to be falling into debt. So there's also,
can I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So because we have a military audience here, I know that for a fact that many military members, as they move from duty station to duty station to duty station, will buy a house and then rent it. They'll leave and rent it out to whoever. So you could have a military member with one house, with two houses, 3 houses. I think there's a colonel I know of. I think he had 6 houses.
Nice.
I mean, that was his thing. He just invested in houses, and that's what he did. What do you think about an emergency fund in that case?
Well, I think that falls into your 50, the 50, 30, 20, because I mean, yeah, I guess you could sell if you had to. You don't want to. That's not the point of the investment. So I would throw that if you have a vacancy rate of 10%, this is another episode, but I would throw that into the emergency fund, maybe a couple months of mortgage in case it does go vacant, et cetera. Yeah. All right. So there are other opportunities to saving first outside of just this conventional wisdom that we've gone through and how it applies to the military. There are some military specific advantages to saving first. The one that's not unique to the military, but it is available to the military, is that TSP match. I'm tempted to rewind this whole episode, go back to the very beginning and just say, hey, dummy, get the TSP match no matter what, right? If you're in the blended retirement system, get the match. My God, it's free money. I can't say that enough. It is absolutely free money. If you don't get the match in the TSP, then I think there are 100 other things you should be looking at, up to and including taking the bus to work or evaluating your entire cash flow, throw everything back on the table in order to go in and get that TSP match. So that's one thing. I know that's not what we're talking about here. If you get the $1,000 extra money, you're not going to be putting it into your TSP necessarily. So just make sure that match is there. I would ask you if you have thoughts on it, but I think you're just going to hammer home the same point. But
yeah, pretty much. Get the match.
Yeah, get the match. There's also an interesting twist here. If you're in a combat zone, right, that income you get is tax-free. So we're not talking about additional money. Let's say it's not additional money. It might be, but like bonuses, et cetera. But like if just the pay you get is going to feel like extra money because it's non-taxed. They're not going to take withholding or whatever. So you're getting more money. It's not going to be taxed while you're in the combat zone. So there's things like the savings deposit program. So putting money aside into a guaranteed high return savings account that's completely tax-free. You're going to get that back and the interest tax-free. And also you have expanded opportunities in the combat zone with saving with a TSP. You can do the normal contribution to 23,500 as we record this in 2025. You can do that into the Roth, but you can do up to 70,000. That's the combined contribution. You could do all of it. I know that sounds insane, like 70 grand. Sure. Yeah. Okay. But if you're overseas and your rent is suspended and all your expenses are expended, you don't have a family and you're in a combat zone, like everything's taken care of, right? What do you need it for? The magic though is back in that Roth one, right? If you could put money, just slam money into your Roth account up to 23,500, you're getting the money tax-free, it's growing tax-free, and you're going to get it tax-free later in life. I mean, there's nothing other than the, HSA, which doesn't apply to military. There's no triple tax deferred or tax benefit account.
I do want to just emphasize one point here, and that is the TSP matching when you are contributing in a combat zone. If you decide that you want to contribute outside of the deferral limit, so above the 23,500 in 2025, and go into the annual additions limit, which allows you to go up to $70,000, then if you do that too early, let's say you max out 23,500 in September or October, for the rest of those months, you're not actually going to get your 5% match. The match only exists for your deferral limit. So if you're going to do this and go into the annual additions limit, then do it consciously, right? Know what the impact is going to be, that you're going to lose a couple of months of match. But if you're going to get close, then you may want to just stick to that 23,500 and make even payments throughout all 12 months to make sure that you get the match.
And perhaps the secret here is because if you're the idea is, right, if you're going above that, well, I'm not getting taxed on it anyway. Well, if you're doing traditional TSP, you're not getting taxed on that stateside, right? So it might not be worth that. Yeah, it's good. More research, you need to really dig in before you go into this. It's a good point. I will link an article here, a real great one by Doug Nordman. I don't want to get too off the rails with combat zone, but there's a really great article, How to Maximize TSP Contributions in a Combat Zone, by our friend Doug Nordman over at the Military Wallet. We'll link that in the show notes for further reference.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, okay. Great. So that's just the keys to saving, efficiently. Get the match. My goodness, free money. Get the match. And, make sure you're using a liquid account. Okay. But also use one that is giving you a good rate. So high yield savings. Don't just accept whatever your local bank that you're putting your checking. I'm sure you love your bank. That's great. But, savings accounts are liquid. You can put it somewhere else is giving you a better rate. Other people do use CDs. I've seen this. I have a couple of clients that do it. They ladder CDs for their emergency fund. I'm okay with it, but just word of the wise, like, that's a lot more work. And as long as you enjoy it, you got to repurchase that thing every month. And if you ladder 12 CDs, and then you got to make sure the beneficiary is named each time. So, maybe lessen your load. Throw in a high yield savings account, forget about it.
Yeah, no, I love that idea of just simplicity, right? That's generally how it goes. CD ladders, great. But yeah, just keeping things as simple as possible.
Amen.
One last thing here on savings, and particularly for an emergency fund. I tell clients this all the time. I like to think of the emergency fund as insurance, not an investment, because I know the scratchy itch.
I thought you were fee only. I didn't think you sold insurance. How dare you? God, here's the pitch. Here's the insurance pitch.
How dare you?
This is when Omen sells insurance on the Fiscal Foxhole.
I told you that for episode 1, you were my co-host. I didn't guarantee anything after that.
Hey, man, we're just lobbing grenades at each other at this point.
Oh,
no, it's a great point. It's insurance. Yeah, it's a sort of self-funded insurance or self-insured policy, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like, man, I am losing out on $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 that I could have in the market right now. If you keep thinking that way, then you're always going to feel a little bit of FOMO, like this fear of missing out. But thinking of it as your ability to put your head on the pillow at night and sleep very, very well, knowing that when your air conditioner goes out, you've got $15,000 to drop on a new air conditioner. It's going to suck, but you've got the cash to do it. So just ways of thinking about your cash.
Good. I'm going to pile the one more point. We keep just going one more before we move on. We've given a lot of good reasons. You just dropped air conditioner. We've talked about the tires. We've talked about whatever, 1% deductible on your home. We've talked about unemployment. Don't put all of these different buckets. I think that's a little excessive. Don't be like, okay, well, I need the 3 to 6 months fixed expenses. I need that. And then I need money for 4 tires. And then I need money for a 1% deductible on the home. No. Just kind of consider them all the same pot. Because emergencies, they're not all going to strike at the same time. Knock on wood. Right? But usually they don't.
They come in 3, I think.
They come in 3. Well, okay, fair enough. So maybe 3 of the buckets keep. Now, just 3 to 6 months, I guess it kind of catches all of this, I think.
Yeah. Hi, Omen here. I know Rob and I have a lot of fun on the show, but I want to take a minute to get serious with you about Rob's financial planning firm, Everman Prosperity. Rob built his firm from the ground up around the core principle of being a fiduciary, serving the best interest of Americans and their families. No commissions, no sales, and no referral fees. Rob believes financial planning should be a transparent, ongoing process that provides peace of mind today and prosperous days tomorrow. Whether you're active duty, navigating retirement the first or the second time, need help managing your investments, or working to build a legacy, Rob meets you right where you are, but will never leave you there. Either click the link in the show notes or visit prosperwitheverman.com today to schedule your free consultation. Everman Prosperity. Pursue your prosperous life.
Everman Prosperity LLC is a registered investment advisor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell securities. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Please consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.
Okay, so here comes the depend. All the depends. Let's just throw it all in because that's our favorite answer to any question in finance, right? It depends. I think there's a lot of it depends answers still left out there.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about the middle ground here between, we don't go all in on 100% debt payoff. We don't go all in on 100% into the savings. There are some problems with that. So for instance, if we go all in on debt payoff, but we don't save any money at all, we don't have any savings, Rob, what typically happens?
You go right back into debt.
Yeah, I mean, something will happen. Like Murphy will strike. You're going to need a new roof. The fridge is going to break. You name it. The dog needs his teeth cleaned. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be expensive, and you're going to have to dig a hole and use the credit card, and you're going to go right back into debt on whatever it is. And not only from a math standpoint, it hurts, but also I think just motivation. It's not great for your motivation to like, oh man, am I ever going to get out of this?
Yeah, well said. What about what about the other side? So if we're only doing savings and nothing towards our debt.
Yeah. So if you put all your eggs in the savings basket, then what you're ignoring at that point is potentially some high interest rates, right? So now all of a sudden you're putting money away, but you're getting overwhelmed by your interest rates that are rolling over from month to month. So that's not really ideal either. So Rob, kind of what would a balanced approach actually look like?
Yeah, good. And this takes us back to our previous, we talked about this earlier in the episode with the high interest rates work both ways, right? So yeah, if you have credit card debt and you're throwing all your money into savings and you're going well beyond your emergency fund that you need for you, then yeah, I mean that, as you wisely stated, that high interest credit card debt that you're not paying off quicker acts as an anchor. It's dragging you back. Your net worth is not accelerating as fast as it could otherwise. The interest rate also works in the other direction. Okay. And that's when you talk about the interest rates of investing. Okay. So let's say you've done the great job of you've paid off all your higher interest debt. And let's say you only have low interest debt. Let's say you got your mortgage in the last 20 years, well, prior to COVID, where it's like 2.5 to 3.5%, right? I wrote an article about this. I can link it in the show notes about telling folks in that situation that maybe paying off your home isn't the best use of your extra income, right? In that case, you would think based on our conversation, okay, well, I'm going to save it. Actually, I'll take you one further. Why not? Then let's talk about investing. Let's say all you have is the mortgage. And let's say that low interest debt and you don't have any high interest debt. So you'd think like, okay, well, I'm going to throw it all in savings. Well, as long as you're not someone that's prone to overspending or going into credit card debt, then we're talking about let's invest it. Right? You can take advantage of that higher rate of return with investing rather than the high yield savings account, which is good. But over time, especially over 30 years, we're talking about a mortgage term, you're definitely going to be better off based on every measurable metric we have of the stock market over the last 100 years.
So what does an actual balanced approach look like if you were to maybe save a little bit of money and then work towards paying off debt? What would that look like?
Okay, let's back up to the original question, the one you asked me at the very beginning. If I got $1,000, what would I do with it? Okay, The interesting part of that question is it comes with assumptions. And the assumption I had in answering that is perhaps I don't have anything in savings, and perhaps I have high interest debt, because that's kind of where the magic is in this question. And we've been dancing around the reasons why or why not. But if you wanted to take a balanced approach, if you're in that situation, you got nothing in savings and you have high interest debt, be aware, as you said, look at it, know where you're at. But perhaps a balanced approach is, hey, let's get the emergency fund, the savings, up to $1,000. Let's just get that. Let's get 500,000, 1,500, 2,000 into a savings account, and then start going over to our high interest debt, because it's just enough to know to kind of start exercising that we need to have some savings to kind of behaviorally get used to that, right? With the acknowledgement that it might not be enough should an emergency hit, right? But after that, mini fund, put everything towards debt.
I mean, and you kind of hit it on it. It might not be enough, right? I mean, I think, again, Dave Ramsey, I think he says $1,000. Just put $1,000 away. That's achievable, and you can put it away. I mean, what do you think about $1,000 today? I mean, to me, this is one of the questions I get quite often from people who are in this position. Is like, should it just be $1,000? Should it be $2,000? I've got, or maybe they even have $10,000 in savings, but they've got $30,000 in debt, and they're like, should I take $9,000 out of that to pay off debt and leave myself with only $1,000? I mean, what do you think?
That's a great question, right? Because now you're coming at it from the opposite direction. I think if you're coming up, you have nothing, get it to 1,000. It's such an arbitrary number because it is an arbitrary number. It's not meant to cover your mortgage or hopefully it covers your car payment for a month. My goodness. But it's not meant to, it's meant to just act as a buffer and an emotional kind of encouraging you. Okay, well, you have a savings account. All right. And now you have a savings account, you have to take care of it. And once your high interest debt's paying off, it's there and you've already started it. You've got that good behavior of having it. Now let's get it up to where it needs to be.
Yeah. So once we get that emergency, the mini emergency fund, so $500 to $1,000 funded, then we move into paying off debt. There's multiple methods to this, whether it's the snowball method that is paying off the lowest balance to highest balance in that priority order, or avalanche method, which is the highest interest rate down to the lowest interest rate. My personal take on this is do what works for you, right? If avalanche works, do that. If snowball works, do that. Just do something. That's how I feel about this. What do you think?
Yeah. Do the minimum payment if you have to, whatever it is, snowball, avalanche. I actually did a breakdown. I built this really complicated calculator in Excel, wrote an article about snowball and avalanche. And it was funny by the end, I had the hypothesis that thinking that the avalanche would be so much better than the snowball, right? Just the terms alone kind of lend to that. And the math actually supports that as well. But when I put it in the calculator and everything, the avalanche really, the difference between the two wasn't enough. And I'll link to that as well. And you can download that calculator and do it for yourself. But the difference was not enough to tell someone you have to do it a certain way. So I'm just supporting your point. If it feels good to do the snowball, and if you're not familiar with these, look them up. It's pretty great. It's a great concept for really getting out of debt. Both of them are snowball, avalanche. But Omen, to your point, just do whatever feels best. There is a mathematical numbers advantage to avalanche, but it's not worth forfeiting maybe the good, the habit, right? If you feel good with the snowball and you're going to build a habit, do that. Yeah. My goodness.
Yeah. So the last point here is this is a math problem in one spectrum of things. But the reason why we're still talking about this today is because there's also a human side of this. And so particularly if you're doing this together with somebody else, chances are the way you feel about what should be done and the way they feel about what should be done is going to differ in some form or fashion. And so just make sure that you're having the conversations about this and put a plan together that works for the both of you before you start to take these steps forward and commit to one way or over the other.
I have nothing to add to that. Yeah. That's beautifully put.
All right, so that is going to be it for our topic today. again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out, but we also have links to everything that we talked about in the show notes. Our next segment here is our game time segment. This is a never-ending, for the moment, trivia challenge that we've got going on between the two of us for nothing more than the prize of pride. Who's the best, Army over Marine Corps? I don't know, Rob, maybe we'll come up with a trophy at some point for this, but currently, because this is episode number 1, the score is tied 0. So each episode, we're going to trade off on coming up with some questions. This could get pretty terrible at some point. We'll see how it goes. But Rob,
yeah, I mean, I'm going to warn you, be nice, right? Because I got to create the next one. So, look, I expect some grace, maybe multiple choice.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to go with multiple choice for right now. I'd imagine by the time we start digging at each other, by episode 10, we're going to be writing essays or something like that. So we'll see.
Fair enough.
All right, here we go.
All right, hit me. What you got?
What strange method did a man in the U.S. actually use to try to pay off a $25 debt in 2011? Was it A, 2 buckets of nickels frozen inside a block of ice? B, a box of 25,000 pennies covered in peanut butter? C, a Ziploc bag filled with crumpled $1 bills and glitter? Or D, a shoebox stuffed with dollar bills folded into origami cranes?
My gosh, the last one sounds oddly specific, but can I take a minute to appreciate the spite level on all of these, right? Like, what was this? What was a 20? And also, like, a $25 payoff? What could inspire that level of spite? When you said $25, I thought you were going to say like an 74 or something. I thought it was like some amount, but this is like 2011, right? Well, what could have possibly created that level of spite?
When I tell you the answer, you're going to, it'll be very obvious when I tell you the answer.
Okay. I don't know. When you said what's the creative way, my mind went to pennies, but then each of those answers just took it up to the next level, which I love. But there is something, I don't have any knowledge of this, but I seem to remember something about frozen in a block ice, and so I'm just going to use that and say A.
Is that your final answer?
Ice.
Do you want to phone a friend on this?
Nah, you're the only friend I got right now.
I think that's the only friend you've got, period. But anyway, in this recording.
Recording, yeah. Right.
No, it was a box of 25,000 pennies covered in peanut butter. So let me just be sure that I'm getting this across to our audience of, I don't know, at least our wives, maybe our moms, to say that please don't go pay your bills in 25,000 pennies covered in anything. That is not our endorsement here. But this guy apparently had a bill at the DMV.
Ah, there it is.
So that is how he paid his fine.
I should have known it was something like that. Something tax related, DMV related, some bureaucratic red tape, forced him to pay that. Yeah, that makes sense. That's great.
All right.
Can I say that? What a delicious way to pay off your debt.
Can you imagine? Pennies themselves are pretty disgusting. But yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it. We're still tied at 0. We'll see what happens on our next episode. But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Fiscal Foxhole. We hope you took something away that you can use in your life. We always appreciate you hanging out with us in the financial trenches. So, Rob, what do you got for us in our takeaways?
Yeah, we talked about a lot of really great stuff when it comes to balancing savings, debt, and the middle ground. But I think the key takeaways that we found here are, going all in on debt can leave you unprepared for future emergencies. Going all in on savings will leave you, getting your net worth dragged behind by high interest debt potentially or other forms of debt. So for everybody out there, there's probably a middle ground that's going to serve you the best, right? It's going to be the right gap, to your point about the feelings, how we feel about this, getting our net worth moved forward, going on, being prepared for the next mission.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions you'd like answered on the show, please send us a note to fiscalfoxhole@gmail.com. If you heard something today that you'd like to discuss further, or you just want to dig deeper into your own financial game plan, both Rob and Omen are accepting new clients and always happy to chat. You'll find the links to their websites or to book appointments in the show notes. Rob Moore and Omen Quelvog are both registered investment advisor representatives. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. While they are both advisors, They are not your advisors. Therefore, nothing you hear on Fiscal Foxhole should be taken as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. For guidance tailored to your situation, please consult a qualified professional who understands your individual circumstances.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome to Off Duty, where Omen and I talk about all the interesting ins and outs of our personal lives. We try to leave a lot of our personal stuff out of this, but this is our chance to kind of connect and give you all a little insight into our lives. But we're recording this on a Saturday, right? It's a beautiful day outside. It is 70. Fall has arrived in Northern Virginia, and we're sitting inside talking into a microphone about debt and savings. How are you spending your weekend?
So here's the thing about recording on a Saturday, and I didn't really think about this when we set this up for Saturday afternoon. Saturday mornings are usually my long runs that I go on for marathon training. So I thought, well, we'll just record this on a Saturday afternoon. It'll allow me to get some rest, and then we can record this podcast. But I went out and mowed the lawn, and I didn't realize, even with the rain that we've gotten in the last couple of days, that how dry things really are out there. And so I figured that during this entire episode, people are going to be wondering, like, does he really sound that nasally? Or if my allergies start kicking up and people are watching our YouTube channel and I start crying or something, this is going to be terrible. So.
Yeah, I think, fortunately you only got a couple more lawn mowings ahead of you before the winter hits. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
I'm already pushing it every 2 weeks so that I don't have to do it.
Yeah. No more, not a lot more left for you. I got, I do have to tell you. So, my lawn needs mowing, but today was spent we did kids activities. Of course, it's always kids activities. Our daughter's doing the marching band thing at the high school. Son had a baseball game, but the interesting rub is our youngest loves swimming. He's doing the early morning thing. I think I told you. So today was the first Saturday, and it was 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. So that was my sad duty to get up, drive it. He did a great job, but ironically, it's actually later than the weekday start time, which is 4:40. So I think I'm the first person, to get out of the Army and end up with an earlier alarm wake up time. Now,
I wouldn't count yourself as the only guy. Like, I, by choice, got up at 3:50 this morning to go run.
Oh, you did run. Okay. So the way you sounded like you wouldn't mow the lawn instead of running. I was like, those do not equate at all. By the way, and again, too, you're getting out of the Marine Corps and you're still keeping the running chops up. That's really something.
Well, that or I'm just insane. So
yeah, there's probably a little bit of that. Awesome. Yeah, so that's the meat of the Saturday. Are you, what are you guys up to the rest of the weekend?
We got Auburn football here. Actually just after we record this, and
who they got?
Playing Oklahoma.
That's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. I was going to have that one. Yeah. I'm going to turn that one on too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Michigan State. I was going to tell you. Yeah. They're playing it. It's 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff tonight. So I'm going to watch 0.0 of that game. 0.0% of that game I'm going to watch. It's not going to happen. We got another baseball game in the morning, so I'll wake up, I'll check the score. It's a real bummer not be able to watch.
The East Coast times for that and the NFL are not great.
Yep.
But that is what we'll spend the rest of our weekend doing on Sunday after church. Megan and I, that is our thing. Like, Sunday afternoon is our thing. That is 7 hours of uninterrupted football with Scott Hansen and NFL Red Zone. So
with commercials this year, by the way, you heard they ruined it, right?
I know there's only 4, it's 15 seconds, and they've been doing all the DraftKings and all that stuff before anyway. So,
all right. Yeah, you're much more patient than I am, but I think you it's a point you got there with these 8:20 kicks, 8:30 or whatever it is, or if they have the dual Monday night games, the one kicks at like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yep.
It ain't for 40-year-old or above on the East Coast. It's not going to happen.
Yep. Old man kicking in at 9.